Assalamu alaikum. How are you today? I hope you're fine. Allow me to talk about myself in this video, just briefly. In the mid 1980s, at the height of apartheid, I found myself as a young, newly married, early 20s man working as a computer programmer at Old Mutual. And Old Mutual had a policy at that time of a car loan of 8% after 2 years employment and a housing loan of 4% after 5 years employment. And just before I reached the 2 year mark, I decided to resign, to leave, because something inside of me was causing me to drag myself off to work. I could see this car loan coming and this housing loan and the pension and the medical aid and all these things. And I didn't want it. Not that I had a lot of money. I had nothing. I was renting a place. We had cheap furniture. We had an old battered up car that we had to push to get it started in the morning. And I just left. I wasn't happy. I left and I took up a job as a lecturer at a so-called colored institution at that time because it was apartheid. Everyone had their own technicons. There was a white technicon and a black technicon and a colored technicon and an Indian technicon. Everyone was separated. Separate development was the notion. But I felt happy as a lecturer, and I felt happy because I was giving back. I was working with underprivileged youngsters, and I was doing something which I felt was what Islam was all about. We were taught to seek knowledge from the cradle unto the grave. We were taught to seek knowledge from here where we are unto China, which is the furthest place. We are taught that the world is made in different tribes and peoples, and we are supposed to get to know one another. So when you travel, you go and find out how do people live, how do they sort out their problems. And Islam is a wealth of knowledge. Most people go to madrasa from the age of 6 to maybe 12 for 6 years, and that's it. They're done. They can learn to bacha basic surahs, and they end up not being able to recite Quran. And the only purpose of learning anything is to get a job to make money. That's it. So Quran and all those things is not important. Nobody reads books on Islam. I've read tons of books. You can ask me about Western scholars like Einstein or even philosophers like Descartes and psychologists like Albert Einstein, Alfred Adler, Carl Jung, Sigmund Freud, um, Harold Roberts. And then you can ask me about Islamic scholars like Imam al Ghazali, the most acclaimed one. What about Ibn Sina? Do Muslims even know who he is? What about Jalaluddin Rumi? I can go on and on and on like that. And to me, life has always been about seeking knowledge, not to gain money or to gain any power or anything, but just to be knowledgeable. I was given the opportunity when I became a lecturer at the business faculty to make a loan of R1 million in 1988. And that was a lot of money. If I think back, the person who was a senior lecturer in the management department, his first name was Rob. I forget his surname now. But he offered a loan. He offered to get me a loan of R1 million. And in 1988, R1 million was worth R1 million, not the chips that it's worth today. In fact, at that time, I had just bought my own house, my first house. And I had worked out that I could have bought about 14 to 15 houses And there was another lecturer in the accounts department who was busy with building projects. I could easily have given him the money, drawn up a contract, and got him to build me 14 or 15 houses, whatever I could manage, and rented it out. But I wasn't into that. That wasn't the purpose of my life. And more than one opportunity has come up for me. And as a computer scientist with 2 degrees in computer science, it was always very easy for me if I had simply just allocated some time to it, building an e-commerce project, or now getting involved with Web 3.0 and cryptocurrencies and NFTs and the like. But if you do it for the sake of money and for the purpose of making a lot of money, then how can that be right? How can that be the pursuit of your own happiness, for the pursuit of your own calmness, for the pursuit of what you are taught in Islam? Islam doesn't tell you to pursue money. In fact, the Nabi once mentioned that the marketplace is a place of necessity, but it's not a place to be desired. It's actually frowned upon. And when asked why, he said that it distracts us from our real purpose, which is to worship Allah. And so we should just do what we have to do. Just do the work that you have to do. And you cannot make that your purpose of when you get up in the morning, that's what you do for the entire day. It can't be. And then when you're 60, now you suddenly want to reform and then learn everything that you were supposed to have learned continuously from the age of 12 when you left learning. Now you can't recite Surah Fatiha. What sense does that make? So, what was the purpose of your life? How are you going to go? So many people go on Hajj, but they can't recite Surah Fatiha. It's amazing how Muslim people live here in the Western Cape. And I'm not talking about those people whose grandparents got converted and now they're still stuck with Muslim names, but they don't go to masjid, they don't fast, they don't make salah, they don't do anything that is Muslim. I'm a teacher at a high school now, and the things that I see as a high school teacher on the Cape Flats here in Cape Town, South Africa, it's ridiculous what goes on here. And a lot of da'wah work was performed here in Cape Town, which is a good thing. But a lot of those people whose grandparents or great grandparents were Muslim, even good Muslims, they have now just reversed back into nothingness. You know, if you grow up with no father and no guidance, and sometimes with no mother either, then you grow up with nothing. There's no one to teach you, there's no one to guide you, there's no one to tell you where to go. Your aunt or whoever it is who's not Muslim, she knows that your parents were Muslim or your mother was Muslim, so she gives you a Muslim name, and it's chaos and confusion on the Cape Flats. And because there's no Islam in the main, there is murder and mayhem, literally, and drugs rule the day. Because surely that must happen to you if your purpose in life is to be a hedonist and to follow your instincts. In other words, you eat when you're hungry, drink when you're thirsty, uh, indulge in fornication when the urge takes you over, and go to the toilet when the urge takes you over. So if you live like that, then obviously you're going to end up sleeping under the bridge or begging at the robots. And that is on the increase. It's noticeably on the increase here in Cape Town. Why that is so? There's no research for that, and we'll never find statistics for that. Plain and simply because nobody cares. Nobody's in charge. Nobody's doing anything about it. Everybody's just going about their daily lives, not really knowing what to do. And the country is decaying slowly but surely. There are a lot of good Muslims in Cape Town, a lot. And they are doing a lot of quiet work, which we don't hear about because that is the nature of Islam. The left hand is not supposed to know what the right hand is doing. And Muslims are renowned for making sadaqah. And not just in terms of food parcels, but even in terms of places of shelter built by Muslim people. And so that is something that is commendable. And that is why I, for one, am proud to be a Muslim. I know there's a lot of propaganda against Muslim people, but without Muslims here in Cape Town, this place would be 100 times worse than it is at the moment. And we Muslims, we've always looked after ourselves. We've always stood on our own 2 feet and done things ourselves. We've set up things that we needed ourselves. And we've never been assisted in the past, and we're not being assisted right now either. But what we have to do is we have to simply just continue doing what we are doing. And if we have to set up our own opportunities, then that is what we must do. And if we decide to leave because things are becoming too un-Islamic here in Cape Town or in South Africa, then that is what we must do. A lot of Muslim people have left. A lot have left via the brain drain. A lot have just left because they couldn't take the security and the economic situation and the load shedding. They just left and gone overseas. And they haven't come back. They haven't come back because they don't want to come back to what we have here. Most of us who are still here are carving out little niches for ourselves. We go to work and we come home. We go to family and we come home. We go to friends and we come home. And when we do go out and about, we go to certain places where we know it's safe. And of course, it's overcrowded because everyone is there because of its safety. But that's how we're living. Is that life where you can't walk to the masjid because it's not safe? And yet you live in an area that's considered safe. How sick is that? That's a sign of a sick society. And yet people say it's a free society. Assalamu alaikum.